Hello and welcome. In this video we are discussing about Java server pages server response. So in this chapter we will discuss the server response in JSP. So when a web server responds to a HTTP request, the response typically consists of a status line, some response headers, a blank line and the document. So the status line consists of the HTTP version, a status code and a very short message corresponding to the status code OK. So the summary of the most useful HTTP 1.1 response headers which go back to the browser from the web server, and these headers are frequently used in web programming. Header and description. Allow. This header specifies the request methods, get, post, etc. that the server supports. Cache control. This header specifies the circumstances in which the response document can safely be cached, and it can have values public, private or no cache, etc. Public means document is cacheable and private means document is for a single user and can only be stored in private non-shared caches, and no cache means document should never be cached. Connection. This header instructs the browser whether to use persistent HTTP connections or not, and a value of close instructs the browser not to use persistent HTTP connections, and keep alive means using persistent connections. Content disposition. This header lets you request that the browser asks the user to save the response to disk in a file of the given name. Content encoding. This header specifies the way in which the page was encoded during transmission. Content language. This header signifies the language in which the document is written. Content length. This header indicates the number of bytes in the response, and this information is needed only if the browser is using a persistent keep alive HTTP connection. Content type. This header gives the multi-purpose internet mail extension type of the response document. Expires. This header specifies the time at which the content should be considered out of date and thus no longer be cached. Last modified. This header indicates when the document was last changed, and the client can then cache the document and supply a date by an if modified since request header in later requests. Location. This header should be included with all responses that have a status code in 300s, and this notifies the browser of the document address, and the browser automatically reconnects to this location and retrieves the new document. Refresh. This header specifies how soon the browser should ask for an updated page. Again, you can specify time in number of seconds after which a page would be refreshed. Retry after. This header can be used in conjunction with a 503 service unavailable response to tell the client how soon it can repeat its request. Set cookie. This header specifies a cookie associated with the page. The HTTP servlet response object. So the response object is an instance of a Java x.servlet.http.http servlet response object, and just as the server creates a request object, it also creates an object to respond to the client, and the response object also defines the interface that deal with creating new HTTP headers, and through this object the JSP programmer can add new cookies or date stamps, HTTP status codes, etc. And the methods can be used to set HTTP response header in your servlet program, and these methods are available with the HTTP servlet response object, and this object represents the server response. String encode redirect URL. String URL encodes a specified URL for use in the send redirect method, or if encoding is not needed, returns the URL unchanged. String encode URL. String URL encodes a specified URL by including the session ID in it, or if encoding is not needed, returns the URL unchanged. Boolean contains header string name, returns a boolean indicating whether the named response header has already been set. Boolean is committed, returns a boolean indicating if the response has been committed. Void add cookie adds a specified cookie to the response. Void add date header string name long date adds a response header with the given name and date value. Void add header string name string value adds a response header with the given name and value. Void add int header string name int value adds a response header with the given name and integer value. Void flush buffer forces any content in the buffer to be returned to the client. Void reset clears any data that exists in the buffer as well as status code when it is. Void reset buffer clears the content of the underlying buffer in the response without clearing headers or status code. Void send error int sc sends an error response to the client using the specified status code and clearing the buffer. Void send error int sc string message sends an error response to the client using the specified status. Void send redirect string location sends a temporary redirect response to the client using the specified redirect location URL. Void set buffer size in size sets the preferred buffer size for the body of the response. Void set character encoding string charset sets the character encoding MIME charset of the response being sent to the client. For example, ATF/8. Void set content length int len sets the length of the content body in the response in HTTP servlets, and this method also sets the HTTP content length header. Void set content type string type sets the content type of the response being sent to the client if the response has not been committed. Void set date header string name long date sets a response header with the given name and date value. Void set header string name string value sets a response header with the given name and value. Void set int header string name int value sets a response header with the given name and integer value. Void set local sets the local of the response if the response has not been committed yet. Void set status int sc sets the status code for this response. So this was a brief discussion on Java server pages. Thanks for watching this video. Bye for now.